Voting is a civic duty. Let's register on the electoral list. This is a message from Equinoxe Television.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me on this edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinoxe Television. First, our major stories. The National Episcopal Conference of Cameroon urges Cameroonians to ensure that their names are registered on the electoral register and also to vote when the time comes. They have also called on elections organizing authorities to ensure a free, fair and transparent elections. And while those of the opposition have congratulated the bishops for the pastoral letter, those of the ruling CPDM party rather lambast the letter while saying that they are attempting to create confusion between Cameroonians. And away from that, April Fool's Day is here and people around the world are having a blast, playing pranks and tricks on each other. But have you ever wondered where this tradition came from? Let's find out in this edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast. Those are top stories, the news info in a jiffy. Once more, thank you so much for choosing Equinoxe Television for presentation. I am Immaculate Fogwe. While opposition politicians are praising the bishops of the pastoral letter released on the political, social and economic life of the nation, those of the opposition are rather lambasting the men of God, accusing them of attempting to create a conflict between Cameroonians. Babla Jonathan compiled their views in the following report. We'll be coming back.
Of Cameroon spelling out 10 criteria of a good leader has generated divergent and convergent reactions within the political landscape of the country. Within the ranks of the opposition, it is a good move taken by the bishops.
We should first of all salute the courage and the interest of the church in the affairs of the management of the republic. If the church who is building the moral integrity of a nation, I think it is but normal that they come up with such kind of a communication. And I myself, I took pain to read the letters, and I don't think that the church is inventing anything new. We know all the principles that should govern a country.
To politicians of the ruling Cameroon People's Democratic Movement, CPDM, the bishop's pastoral letter is not only uncalled for, but a hate and conflict enabler.
They should be out of politics. They're not supposed to get themselves involved in anything about politics. Because whatever they say, it has a tendency of being taken as some gospel truth. When they give all those adjectives to describe who is the president, how do they qualify those adjectives? You know, when you use an adjective, there's a tendency of it having so many diverse meanings. And the interpretation can lead to so much chaos, violence, and trouble. Only persons who have the capacity to be president can present themselves to the public. And that, look, this is my social contract I want to sign with you guys to represent the country. Why should priests decide to influence the people? What they are doing now is sowing seeds of discord, which means that if moral rectitude, for example, is not of their standard, or the standard of any other person, he cannot be a president of this country.
However, about the involvement of the church in the nation's political life, Archbishop Andrin, president of the National Episcopal Conference, says it is part of the missions of the church.
The church has the obligation to be able to look at society and point out the things that are going on that are not correct. This is the obligation of the church. That is why the church exists, as stated in Gaudium et Spes and other documents.
The bishops have urged Cameroonians to vote for the candidate who meets the criteria that enables him or her to govern the country properly for their well-being.
Away from politics, now we take you to the Far North region, precisely the locality known as Mogode. During the celebration of the Feast of Eid al-Fitr, the Muslims prayed for peace as the October 2025 presidential election approaches. The Lamido of Mogode, known as Abubakar Fakal, urged the young people to massively register on the electoral register. Asa Lusilengu with the details.
In Mogode, Mayut Sanaga division of the Far North region, this year's celebration marking the end of Ramadan was especially significant. The event highlighted social cohesion with strong involvement from both the Christian and Muslim communities, showcasing a unified spirit among the people of Mogode.
Nous vivons en harmonie. Nous n'avons pas de problème. Musulmans, chrétiens, nous sommes d'abord tous les fils du même village.
During the prayers, the faithful prayed to Allah for peace in anticipation of the upcoming presidential elections.
Puisse se passer dans la sérénité, le calme et la paix.
The Lamido of Mogode took this opportunity to motivate the young people to register on the electoral list and vote when the time comes, advocating for elections characterized by calmness and dialogue.
Au développement du Cameroun.
A remarkable development during this celebration was the historic recognition of women in the Kapsiki community.
L'arrondissement de Mogode avec les femmes, ce n'est pas facile.
For the first time, women were honored, representing a major shift in societal norms. Under the Lamido's guidance, they are now acknowledged as role models, breaking traditional barriers.
Table à la chefferie, c'est toute une première pour les femmes de l'arrondissement de Mogode.
Women can now independently purchase land, a right that was previously denied without their husband's approval. The celebration of Ramadan ended on a joyous note filled with optimism for Mogode's future under the leadership of His Majesty Abubakar Fakal.
And the same vein, Muslims in Ezeka, that is Nignon and Kele Division, Central Region of Cameroon, gathered for the Eid al-Fitr prayers, marking the end of the Ramadan with a sense of hope and renewal. During the ceremony, the faithful prayed for an end to the ongoing Anglophone crisis and the eradication of corruption in Cameroon. The Imam emphasized on the need for mental shift towards a more positive and united future for the country. Siri Chakutio tells us more.
Muslims in Ezeka assembled at the esplanade of the train station for prayers to mark the end of the Ramadan fasting. They were joining millions of others around the world to celebrate the feast of Eid al-Fitr, one of the most important days in the Muslim calendar. The celebration went well. The Imam's message has always been one of peace. Peace in life, peace in the world. However, he reminded us that the month of Ramadan is the month when we dedicate ourselves to changing our mentality. The Imam emphasized on a change in mentality, but above all, he called for peace, especially in war zones. Each of us must examine our conscience to return to Allah.
Et nous voyons tout ce qui est en train de se passer partout dans le monde entier, en Amérique, même ici, chez nous dans le Cameroun.
In my daily prayer, I asked Allah to grant peace in the world, but especially in the crisis zone here in Cameroon. May Allah change our hearts so that they may be pure.
De nos frères qui sont dans la zone de Nozo et ceux qui sont du côté du nord là, qui sont en train de manifester la violence, que Allah change leur cœur, que leur cœur devienne vraiment tendre pour un Cameroun que nous voulons en paix.
The Muslim faithful understood the message as the end of Ramadan marks a new life and a change in mentality.
And still in religion, Muslim faithful in Gaundare have been told to be ambassadors of peace and living together. The call was made by the Imam of the Central Mosque during the celebration of the Feast of Ramadan. Issues related to environmental hazards were also evoked by the Muslim community suffering from droughts. Smaji Kangebu reports.
At the Central Mosque in Gaundere, Muslim faithful gathered in their numbers to pray as they end a 30-day fasting period. In the course of the prayer session, the Imam of the Central Mosque of Gaundere told the Muslim faithful that even though the month of Ramadan is over, they should continue to be peaceful and to be ambassador of living together, as well as protecting the environment.
I am totally satisfied because citizens of Ngadama region carried out their fast without hindrance, without difficulties. We have accomplished a very important pillar of Islam. I do hope that for the forthcoming elections, people should also be very gentlemen people, responsible people, and for us to carry out, to take up those elections without difficulties.
In the course of the prayer session, issues of drought were brought up as some inhabitants are having tough times. But Adamawa Regional Governor reassures.
The peasants are carrying out some activities which are not adequate, which are not normal. They should change their manner of cultivating, their manner of what I call burning the bush. So those activities are very negative, should stop. So we are going to make a turnover, what I call a tournée, to inform and to sensitize, to educate, and bring information to the population in order to avoid some bad activities.
After the feast of Ramadan, the Muslim faithful will have another 6-day additional fasting period known as Sid de Shawwal before they start preparing for the Tabaski feast.
April Fool's Day is today, and people globally are engaging in playful pranks and tricks on friends and families. Have you ever been a victim, or do you know someone who was a victim? Anyways, let's watch this report done by Mala Glory, who captured the thoughts and feelings of locals about this day right here in the city of Douala. Her report.
Those who have forgotten to mark their calendars might have already been duped by a sly joke or two. Talking to some denizens in the city of Douala on this April Fool's Day, they expressed their disappointment after they were pranked.
That my visa is out. So I was happy. As I called my agent said that no, there is nothing, that my visa is not yet out.
April Fool's Day is observed on April 1 worldwide. People surprise their loved ones with harmless jokes and pranks. And tradition dictates that pranksters have until noon to execute their mischief before tables turn, or they risk becoming the fool themselves.
Ce matin, j'ai reçu un message d'un ami. C'était écrit envoie ton OM. J'étais déjà content.
She received a money alert from a friend just to realize later that it was an April Fool. On this day, prank might sound funny or dangerous depending on the type of joke and the receiver's mood.
I can't do that because I don't know if the person is a high blood patient, because I can do that to someone and the person just died. Because April Fool is nice, but on the other hand, it's not also good.
It's 1st April. It's April Fool. Many of you were tricked today in one way or the other. Some were disappointed and shocked, while others, it was fun. Derek is all the way from Bonamusadi to Rompoint. Good morning, Derek.
Good morning, madam.
Can you tell us what happened today?
I woke up in the morning. I had a message from a friend. So he told me to come and eat and drink. I left the house, come in, and he said he was going to come meet me up. But unfortunately, I've finished eating, finished drinking, and he's not yet there. And I saw an alert saying it's April Fool. I'm just there. I will sort out the bills and see how I can go back home.
Quite funny indeed. That's April Fool for us. Reporting from Rompoint Dedo, we are Jires Yopa and Mala Glory for the news.
Thanks a bunch, Mala Glory. Beware of April Fool. That's it for this first part of the news. Talking Point is up next. My guest tonight on Talking Point is a Pan-Africanist and also a political analyst. He's known as Andrin EBAKO. Good evening. It's a pleasure having you on Talking Point tonight.
Thank you very much, Immaculate Fogui, for having me on Talking Point.
In a pastoral letter released last week to mark the Lenten season, bishops of Cameroon reviewed the country's political space while painting the qualities of a perfect leader. What's your appraisal of this latest outing of bishops?
Anyway, I think that is a very constructive letter and a very good initiative by the bishops of the Catholic Church. Well, however, I think that in a context as the people of Cameroon, when you look at our socio-political situation, it's quite complicated, because here we are not only looking for a leader who can carry the country into an expected place that can meet the demands and reflect the aspiration of its people. But again, leadership should be collective. It shouldn't be in the hands of one person. So I think that the letter should have been more of getting Cameroonians to fully participate in a collective vision, as a one vision in a way forward in building this country, in such a way that it can produce a leader that can be accountable and that can meet the demands of its people. Because if we allow leaders be appointed by others and we expect those leaders to make changes in our lives, in our society, it becomes very challenging. We understand that in a situation in Cameroon, we still have external influences, especially the pacts and treaties that were signed in the 60s when our independence were given. So if we are talking of those that are going to, or a leader that is going to carry up Cameroon, we should go back into the very vision of our founding fathers of gaining sovereignty. We cannot be sovereign and yet be dependent on foreign and external forces to be able to develop or bring Cameroon to an expected place where all Cameroonians can feel and have a sense of belonging in their country. So this has to be the population. If we say the government is the people and the people are the government, so we need to get the masses. And this should not be just the masses. We have to get Cameroonians in a one box and not parties, because multipartism doesn't give Cameroonians the sense of having to choose a good leader, because here there is bribe, there is corruption, and there is the consciences of people can be bought because of poverty and because of their living conditions. So we have to change this mentality and the approach of the leadership system and electoral processes which we adopted by the Europeans. We have to change this system, because if we are going to build systems in Cameroon that are going to reflect the Cameroonians, these systems must come from the Cameroonians themselves, and this has to be collective. Collective in such a way that we shouldn't go on who is going to be the best leader, who is going to be the next party that is going to rule Cameroon. We want to see Cameroonians at one point standing up and say, we are the future of this country. And the decision that we are going to make today is going to reflect how we are going to live in this country tomorrow. So this decision is not supposed to be in the hand of a particular individual or a particular party. It has to be in the hands of the Cameroonian people. And if we allow this multipartism to split the energy and reduce the concentration and the capacity and the ability, the energy of the people, then we can never have effective leadership in Cameroon, because we are living in division. We need synergy, we need unison, we need unity in order to build a structure that can reflect the people of this country.
Now, I'd like to get your own point of view on this. How important is moral, physical, and intellectual uprightness as far as the president of a nation is concerned?
Well, when we talk about the kind of leader, intellectually, uprightness, rectitude, a president for this nation, we have to be looking at our youth population, because we are talking about the destinies of the youth of this country. We cannot be depending on leadership on the hands of people who have already outlived their life and they've rendered their services to this nation. I think that as we are speaking right now, the leadership should be in the hands of those whose future matters, and that's the majority, which are the youth. We can cite in the case of Burkina Faso, we have a 34-year-old president who is commanding and bringing that country into an expected place where the Africans who are residing in that country can see the need of belonging in their own country. So when we talk about who should be morally, uprightly, intellectually to lead us, we need vibrant young Cameroonians whose future have been deprived for so many decades due to bad leadership. We need these masses, like I keep saying. We need to get the masses educated to understand how leadership is been very, very complicated and difficult, where we are not here to blame the old leaders, we are not here to blame the current leaders, we are not here to blame our leadership, that we understand what is happening in most of these African countries that are being ruled or colonized by foreign powers. We understand that leadership has never been easy, which is why I still come back to say that we need young revolutionaries, people who have minds of a new system of leadership, of a new style, a new model of government. We cannot repeat the same things and expect to get a different result. So this ideology, which was brought to us by the West on the condition that if we were going to rule or have our own politics, have our own economy, we need to have these systems in our constitution. We need to have democracy. We need to have all these pacts and treaties that were signed, knowing that in the beginning of the independence of this country, these lands, according to the Europeans, did not belong to the African people, and which is why we still pay colonial tax. So if we are going to have leaders who are vibrant, young, intellectual, energy, we should believe that our economic and social development should be based on our human resources and not the foreign powers, and not this model of systems that are brought in by the West, which we have been using now for almost close to 60 years to 65 years. It has never developed Africa. So we need to build new systems and new structures.
Looking at the qualities of a good leader, as enumerated in the pastoral letter released by bishops of Cameroon a few weeks ago, they outlined 10 criteria for anyone who wants to become president of Cameroon. From what you read, do you think President Paul Biya is a good candidate for the forthcoming presidential elections?
That is a very complicated question, looking at the context of which the Cameroonian people are finding themselves in. Like I still say again, to all Cameroonians should be aware that Cameroon is still paying colonial tax to the French government. Cameroon is still using the French CFA, which was printed by the French treasury. Cameroon still has its natural reserves that is kept in the Swiss bank, managed by the Minister of Finance in France. So as a matter of fact, we do not have an economy, because they determine the prices of the things that we have in our own country. And which is why you see almost close to all the 300 and something companies that France has in Cameroon, they don't pay tax. If you look at these things, it makes it very, very complicated, in the sense that if we are going to come up with a good model of leadership, we have to go back into those treaties and into those pacts, denouncing them and allowing the Cameroonians to be able to build their own systems that can reflect their own needs and their own demands. Our future and our destiny, and their future and destiny cannot be at the detriment of our own children. So we have to build and protect our own system so that it can favor the fourth to the third generations that are coming, so that they can be patriots in this country, instead of serving systems which rather benefit the Europeans.
I still want to get that answer. Is President Paul Biya the best candidate for the upcoming presidential elections? And also, what mechanisms can be put in place to ensure the president is accountable to the people and transparent in their decision making?
Well, let us look at it in the context of democracy. And we can also redefine what democracy is in our own context. We cannot have a specific, democracy is not a law, and we must not play by certain protocols, rules, and regulations that have been set in place, which does not reflect or in the advantage of those that are going to vote. So I think that if democracy is looking for the majority, then I would say to Cameroonians, we do not need multi-partyism. We don't need you people to go militate behind political parties. This is just merchandise of, making merchandise of the people of Cameroon and making their own means and extorting money and making profit from these people. So if I am going to refer to these 2025 elections that are coming up, I will tell Cameroonians, decide and build synergy. Stay together and go in as one man, one voice, one nation, and put in your voice and say, this is our position. And this is why you see how detrimental political parties have become, because they are like different ideologies and different religions, which what this person believes, this person doesn't believe. So it makes leadership become very, very complicated in the context of the Cameroonian people. As a matter of fact, we may not need to have a good Cameroon by removing CPDM out of the power. We may not need to have a good Cameroon by voting in MRC. We can have a good Cameroon if all Cameroonians come with one voice and say, here we take charge. We decide our own future at this point. Then we can see change. Change will never come from these leaders. Change will never come from these political parties. But change can come from the people, and the people who are determined to make their own future and to be masters of their own future. And this is what Pan-Africanism is all about, is for the people to rise up and make a revolution, not a revolution which is in disrespect of their elders, in disrespect of their fathers, or in disrespect of their leaders, but in the favor of their own future and the future of the coming generation. This is where we must go to as Cameroonians. So this ideology of elections and votes and political parties, we need to understand that this model has faded and is out of fashion. We need new systems.
Andrin, ATEM, EBAKO, Pan-Africanist and political analyst. That's all put an end to today's edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinoxe Television. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for always choosing us. Stay in the company of Sir Shalom Otu and his guest, which comes in a few minutes with the program Equinoxe. From us to you over there, have a wonderful day. Bye-bye for now.